So one of the things that really stood out to me was honeymoon period in business with your clients. And then 5 years down the line, you're maybe looking at the phone thinking, oh God, them again.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Another Byte.
Hello, I'm Sophie Law and welcome to Another Byte. This is the YouTube show for MSPs to improve your marketing and grow your business. Every week, we're going to dive deeper into the latest edition of the MSP Marketing Podcast, hosted by the one and only Paul Green. Was that a good enough introduction for you?
That was a great intro. Thank you very much for having me on your show. It's kind of weird to be a guest on someone else's show like this, but I like it.
Plenty to think about from the podcast that we listened to this week. I mean, honeymoon periods, amongst other things. I'm slightly nervous discussing this with you, Paul, knowing your tendency for terrible
well, you and I should probably set some context, seeing as this is the very first edition of the show, in that we kind of know each other and have known each other for some time. And I'm going to let you explain how we're not in that way. No. And you very happily married to a lovely man. Dave, was it? Kevin? I can't remember. I can never remember his name.
Hamish.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Hamish. I think I was at the wedding. Do you want to just explain the context of how we know each other and sort of what we've done professionally in the past?
Yes. So you're saved in my phone as the king because of your extremely high opinion of yourself.
I like that.
Used to be my boss. In fact, I think it's fair to say you hired me to present on a radio station that you were running, and I moved my entire life to Peterborough. And then 4 weeks later, at Christmas, as I recall, you went, I'm moving to another radio station. I want you to come with me.
Yeah, that was pretty much
it. How it went?
Yeah, but then you got to move to Cambridge, which, as everyone knows, is the world's best city in the UK. And it all worked out fine. And now you've got a professional radio career and you're an international superstar and you hang out with Beyonce. It's great.
Some of those things are true.
Yes. One of those things is certainly true.
It's kind of nice to be working together again. I mean, it's been a long time, right?
It's been an epically long time, but you are very welcome. Well, the plan is for you and me to be here every week on YouTube, isn't it? Talking about what we've been talking about in the podcast.
Yes, indeed. And going into it in a bit more depth, because you sort of ping through so many things and so many kind of awesome ideas that when you're listening to the podcast, you're like, wait a minute, I want a bit more information on that. So thought we'd drill down into it a little bit and have a chat through. So one of the things that really stood out to me was honeymoon period in business with your clients and how you prolong that. I mean, I've been married for a long time now. It's maybe not necessarily just a business tip, but there is that period where you're really excited and it's a new thing and it's a new relationship. And then 5 years down the line, you're maybe looking at the phone thinking, oh God, them again.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
How do you carry that on?
No, well, that's a really good question. And I can't help with your marriage to Kevin, or whatever his name was, Hamish, whatever. Hamish, yeah, that's it. Hamish, Kevin, same thing. But yeah, the honeymoon period with your clients, every MSP experiences this, where your client comes on board, but by the time they've picked you, they have been through such a huge amount of thinking and feeling and worrying and almost overthinking it, because your MSP, your technology company, it's a big supplier, it's a big deal, and to go from to pick your first one is a big deal, kind of like your first boyfriend, actually, Sophie. But to switch from one,
let's not go there.
No, let's definitely not go there. To switch from one from an MSP to your incumbent to a new MSP, there's a huge amount of fear that goes into that for the ordinary business owners and managers that we want to reach, and the fear is that they don't know if you're any good or not. So it's very hard for them to tell. Almost, I would argue, impossible for them to tell if technically you're any good at what you do. I've been working with MSPs for 6 years, and even now I don't really know if an MSP is good or bad at the technical work they do. I'm starting to figure out some of the areas to look at, but it's impossible for me to know. So even if I was picking a new MSP tomorrow, I'm not doing it with a noggin. I'm doing it with my feelings and with my heart. I'm doing it based on intuition. And so by the time that someone has picked you and signed the contract, contract and committing themselves to you for however long, they are desperate for it to work. You've got to be really bad to lose a client in the first sort of 30, 60, 90 days. And that's that honeymoon period. And the honeymoon period can continue for, some period of time, 4 years. But eventually, just like in a marriage, eventually everything just starts to cool off, and that's where you start throwing toasters at each other in a marriage. But in a business relationship, it's more a case of the little things start to become problems. Things like you guys, we told you about that problem on Monday and you haven't fixed it yet, or you guys don't seem to pick up the phone, or it hasn't been the same since Dave left, and Dave left 2 years ago. And what happens is, actually in real life as much as in a business, it's that those little things start to annoy people. And I think the only way for an MSP to overcome this is to work on the relationship. It is actually very similar to being married. I'm sure you go on date nights with Hamish, maybe not as regularly as you would like to, but when the two of you get away from the was it 4 or 5 kids you've got? It's 2, isn't it? It's just 2 kids. When the two
made me feel slightly unwell there for a minute.
I do know someone with 5 children, but we'll have that conversation another day. Oh. They have no life whatsoever. But when you and Hamish get away from the kids for a night, or just for a date night, you reconnect and you remember why you fell in love in the first place, hopefully. When you go and do a strategic review with a client, the client remembers why they picked you in the first place. They picked you because you were the best choice for them. So it's why you've got to do, at the very least, once a year, you've got to do some kind of strategic review or quarterly business review with, at the very least, your most important clients.
The other thing I liked the idea of, because it was simpler than I realized, and I always like that in business, is what you were talking about with Rob about finding your niche. Because I was thinking he was then going to say something like you were going to target businesses led by women called Leslie, and some kind of really specific thing. And then the first example he gave was that it was only targeting businesses with 150 employees or less in a sort of 20-mile radius of the company. And I thought, maybe your niche doesn't have to be that niche.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And actually, a niche is about making things smaller. So the biggest problem with marketing is that marketing is big. There's, you look at how many companies you've got in your town or your city or your county, your state, wherever you are, and there are just too many of them. And even though marketing, to a certain extent, is a numbers game in that you've got to hit people only buy when they're ready to buy. So the more people you target, the bigger the numbers, then the greater the chance that you will actually find someone when the timing is right. But the whole point of a niche and is about making things smaller. There's a concept in marketing called category marketing. So I'll give you an example. I happen to have a Tesla car, which is by far the best car I've ever owned. It's just amazing. And Tesla sits... when I was looking for a new car, I knew I wanted something that was a bit sexy. I knew I wanted something that was fast. I knew I wanted an electric vehicle because I am actually quite a green person. I'm quite environmentally conscious. So there are Paul Green, yeah, literally the Paul Green machine. I remember
you had a sports car when we first worked together.
I did, but we don't talk about that these days because that was back in 2002 or something like that, when you couldn't buy electric cars. But yes. these days, it's all about the electric vehicle. For me, there's something like 300, 400 different varieties of new car on sale here in the UK. But I didn't have to pick out of those 400. There were only about 3 or 4 choices for me, because if you want, fast, smart, electric vehicle that with a decent range, you've basically got Tesla. There's like an Audi version. There's just launched a BMW version. And so what these are categories of cars. And, the smart car manufacturers position their cars within certain categories. If we take the Nissan Qashqai, and our US viewers might not be familiar with this particular model, but the Nissan Qashqai was the first ever crossover where someone at Nissan, who was a genius, said people love the height of a 4x4, but they prefer the driving experience of a car that's lower to the road. Let's do both. That was where the Nissan Qashqai came out of that, and it was the first ever crossover, and they invented a category. And for about 6 years, the Nissan Qashqai was the best-selling car in that category because it was the only car in that category. And it's now, I think it's one of the fastest growing categories. It's in between what in the States is called SUV. Here it's called 4x4 and sort of normal road cars, and it's fascinating. So when you have a niche, all you're trying to do is you are trying to reduce down the number of people you're marketing to. And apart from the fact that makes the number smaller, it means your marketing is more effective because you can cut through more. I mean, I'm sat here, what we're doing here is a niche of a niche of a niche. I looked at it and I said, right, let's go for IT. This is when I started this new business 6 years ago. I still call it a new business. It's 6 years old now, but it still feels new to me because I've still got passion for it. I'm in the honeymoon period still. I'm working with IT support companies, but then it's doing marketing for IT support companies, and which is itself becomes a niche. And then the next niche is we tend to work with businesses under around $2 million. Once you get up to $2 million of turnover, you hire marketing agencies and marketing teams and internal marketing people and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a niche within a niche within a niche, but there's still a big niche, and there's tens of thousands of MSPs within that niche, but it allows us to make sure that our marketing is highly relevant to that audience, and that's the real power of niching it down in that way.
And putting your electric or non-electric car aside, the importance of walking it out or getting away from your desk when you're trying to thrash out an idea, a project, a client relationship. Why is it so good? Or why does your best work come when you're not at your work desk?
I know, it's weird, isn't it? That's a really weird thing. I think there's a number of different factors that come into play with this, and this is a really good question, actually, Sophie. The first factor that comes into play is our work environment is not natural. So we are still built and still programmed in our brains as we were 100,000 years ago, when we were cave dwellers, and we lived together in caves, and we sort of worked together in social circles. But most of our work was done outdoors, and we were exercising. We were either literally running after things to try and kill them to eat them, or we were in the fields, cultivating and sowing. And in fact, there's a great book. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Sapiens, and I can't remember the author's name. It's a really, really big book. It's one of those books you take on holiday and read by the pool to look intelligent.
Make yourself look smarter.
Exactly that. And it's actually a really good book.
Don't do that. It's your holiday. Just enjoy it. Take a trashy one with you.
I read marketing books all the time. I'm actually quite dull in that respect. But that talks about
Are you still single? I'm just checking.
I am still single, yes.
It's a mystery.
I know, it is a mystery, isn't it? I'm sure there are many reasons why, which we can explore when we're not on this show. And why are you asking me if I'm single? Anyway, if you read that book, it says that until we started cultivating fields, humans didn't stay in one place. We roamed. We would stay in a place for a few days, and then the food would run out, so we'd just walk on to the next place, as a group, as a tribe of people, and then we'd do the same thing, and we never stayed in the same place. This is how humans spread over the planet, and it was only when we actually started agriculture that the crops made us stay in one place, because it takes a year's worth of work to get a crop, and once you've done that year's worth of work, you don't want to leave because you've kind of have to start again. So it was we only actually became bound to one place, and I forget how many hundreds of thousands of years ago, but our natural behavior is actually to move. So to cut a long story short, when we move, our brain works differently. Our brain, which is incredible at problem solving, our brain is constantly working at solving problems for us, but when we're moving, it's better for us physically, it's better for us mentally, it's better for us emotionally, and that so much more comes into play. Whereas actually when you're sat at your desk all day, this kind of, certainly the kind of environments that we live in today, even if you're working from home, we're all sat on our computers. There's not enough air coming in. There's too many distractions from other things. The phone's pinging every 5 seconds. It's impossible for your brain to focus on this thing. I love going out for a walk. If I get stuck during the day, and I'm lucky to live in a village in a beautiful part of the UK, but I'll just go out for it, even if it's just a 10-minute walk up into a field and back down through the woods. You just feel so much better, and guess what? Your afternoon, you get as much work done as you did in the morning. It's an absolutely beautiful thing to do.
One more for you, which is something that Rob said, but I think you can probably expand on it, about sticky customers or wanting customers to stick. And he talked about saying no, like certain customers that his website was designed to talk some customers away. And I thought, what? Why would you want to send potential customers away? So why is that such an important thing, to identify the ones that are actually going to work for you and the ones that aren't? Because
not all customers are equal. And it takes business owners years to figure this one out. If you are an MSP that's geared up for 100 plus users, and that's a fairly extreme example that Rob gave. I mean, your average MSP, you're looking for 20, 25 users plus, and they'd be very happy with that. If that's what you're geared up for, that's where your most amount of profit comes from. If someone rings you up and says, all right, there's me and there's Dave, and we've got 2 computers, and they break now and again, and we're on Windows 7 and we're running Office 2010 or whatever they're running, there's simply just not the amount of profit in there, because it takes the same amount of organization and mental energy to look after a 2 or 3 user client as it does a 25 or 30 user client. I'm sure the actual amount of work is greater with a 25, 30 user client, but every single client needs a certain amount of management. It needs a certain amount of setup. And if it's about profitability, and this is something you learn, I think, as your business matures, that you want to look after the clients, you want to do a great job for them, but also you want to make a ton of net profit, because net profit gives you options. You can take that money and spend it on your children and holidays and property and cars and Teslas and stupid things like that. But you can also pay your technicians more than anyone else in the marketplace, which is what we need right now because recruitment is hard. And you can reinvest it back into improving your security stack and improving your other technology tools. And you can invest it into marketing, and you can do all of these other things. So if you know that you're optimized as a business to produce net profit from this niche of client, then that's what you should be focusing on. And you absolutely should be turning away people that just aren't right for you. And that's the hardest thing, Sophie, I think, for any business owner. And I've been in business since 2005. And, we sell one thing. The MSP Marketing Edge, it's £99 a month or $129 a month, and that's all we sell. It's only sold to one MSP per area. We've got 600 members all around the world, but every now and again, someone comes and asks me, Paul, will you do XYZ, or will you do this, or will you do a bit of consulting, or will you do that? And, because I've been a business owner for so long, I have to really battle myself to stop and say, no, I don't want to do that, because actually that's not what we're focusing on. We're focused on growing one business, doing one thing brilliantly, and every business owner has exactly this. So yeah, you have to be quite, what's the word? You have to be quite tough on yourself to turn away business that there's never really going to be any profit in it.
So interesting. I just had never really thought about that before. I'm very much a yes human. I probably need to be more of a no human.
Yes.
So
well,
if
you were running your own business, you would eventually have to become a no human because you'd be exhausted. And there's you typically find, and this is not quite a universal rule, but it practically is, that the least profitable clients are the ones who demand the most attention, and often that's unfair. In fact, most business owners know that it's the 80-20 rule, which is if you have 100 clients, 20 of those clients are generating 80% of the work. And that 80-20 rule goes into itself. So if you've got 20 clients who are creating the most amount of hassle and work, then 20% of those, which is 4. Don't
ask me the math.
We're both English people, not maths people. But 4, that's 4. I can't believe I actually had to sit and think about that. That's 4 people. So four, the 80-20 rule goes into itself. 80% of the hassle of the entire business is coming from 4 people or 4 clients, and those are the ones that you would want to lose. And often that goes the other way around with profit as well, that a huge proportion of your profit will be coming from a very small minority of your clients. These are some of the things sometimes some of the reason you need to step back as the business owner and actually look at what you've got and analyze it and think about it and say, where is the hassle coming from and how do I remove that hassle? And often it comes from the smaller, more needy clients. Where does the profit come from? How can I maximize profit? Hang on, I've got a 50-seat client here that takes up 5 hours a week and they're a joy to work with and they're highly profitable. Well, I want more clients like that. And that's how you really super grow the business and its net profits, by focusing in on those people.
Amazing stuff. Well, that's probably all we've got time for on the very first episode of Another Byte. Thank you very much, Paul Green. You can listen to plenty more of him if you're that way inclined on the Paul Green MSP Marketing Podcast. And we'll be back next week.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Another Byte.